A threat of, quote, catastrophic consequences for the United States from a top Chinese Communist Party official today. After a series of high-profile diplomatic squabbles, China's new foreign minister drew a red line with the United States over the issue of Taiwan. And he defended Beijing's relationship with Moscow, Russia. CNN's Selena Wang went to the National People's Congress in Beijing to find obstacles for journalists covering the foreign minister's tightly controlled debut.
Thousands of government delegates across China are gathering for the biggest annual political meeting, known as the Two Sessions. It's the first since China abandoned its zero-COVID policy. But reporters covering the event are still stuck in a COVID bubble, required to stay overnight at a quarantine hotel and get an on-site PCR test.
We just left the quarantine hotel. We're now headed to the venue. Everything is highly controlled.
The foreign media bus gets dropped off at Tiananmen Square.
It is very rare for journalists to get access to this. As you can see, though, there's heavy security. There are guards everywhere. Normally, the Two Sessions is the rare chance for media to get up and close to China's top leadership. Right here on the steps of the Great Hall of the People, this is normally where you will see media trying to doorstop the top leadership. But as you can see, this year, the media, were completely separate from the rest of the leaders.
The Two Sessions is a carefully choreographed event. The new government shakeups that the rubber stamp parliament will vote on have one unifying goal: to strengthen Xi Jinping and the ruling Communist Party's power. And the COVID restrictions are the perfect tool for Beijing to control the message.
So media has to apply to get access to specific events. We're not granted approval to all of them. And this is the media area inside the Great Hall of the People. As you can see, it's pretty empty, so it's clearly not an issue of capacity.
Some of the events during the week-long meeting allow select reporter questions, including Qin Gang's first press conference as China's new foreign minister. He said that conflict with the U.S. is inevitable if Washington does not change course. Qin Gang called Washington's approach a reckless gamble, accused the U.S. of creating a crisis over Taiwan, defended China's partnership with Russia as imperative, and said it has not supplied weapons to Russia or Ukraine.
See you at the Two Sessions.
Meanwhile, Chinese state media is portraying the legislative meeting as an open event where journalists can freely operate.
Sri Lanka.
I'm from Loop News. It's an amazing country.
The assemblies also offer journalists the opportunity to put questions to the Chinese premier and ministers.
But under these controls, spontaneous run-ins with top leaders like the premier and ministers are out of reach. But after today's meeting ended, we had a few minutes to approach some delegates, which are a curated group of local representatives. This delegate is part of the Zhuang ethnic minority from the southwestern Guangxi province. She says this is her first time attending the Congress, and she feels happy to see her motherland becoming stronger. The rest of the delegates quickly rush out before we have a chance to approach them. The question is how much of these COVID controls will remain in post-pandemic China. It limits access even more to China's already extremely opaque political machine. This much is clear. The communist leadership only wants the world to see one narrative from China. That is the image of unity, strength, and victory.
Jake, those COVID restrictions were so surprising considering the country has already completely opened up. So it really seems like those COVID controls were really just an excuse to restrict press access. Now, this year's Two Sessions is significant because it is the first after Xi Jinping secured that precedent-shattering third term as party chief last October. Now, during this political event, he's now set to get an unprecedented third term as president. It is a largely ceremonial title, but it is significant. We'll also see a new slate of government leaders and institutional reforms made. All of that is going to increase the Communist Party's grip.
And Selena, this was the foreign minister's first time front and center like this. What did you make of his comments?
Yeah, it's interesting. This was a very fiery and combative press conference. Before this, he was actually the Chinese ambassador to the U.S. He's known as this very accomplished and measured diplomat. So very significant here that he made such strong comments. At one point, he even made a show of reading from a copy of the Constitution of the People's Republic of China to emphasize Beijing's claims that the self-governing democracy of Taiwan is part of its, quote, sacred territory. He also said the Taiwan issue is the bedrock of Sino-U.S. relations and that, quote, the red line that must not be crossed. Now, this press conference came amid reports of a potential meeting between Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen and U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in April. Regardless of where that meeting is held, the Financial Times said it could be held in the U.S. This is going to draw the ire of Beijing. It's going to increase already tense relations. Jake.
All right, Selena Wang in Beijing, thank you so much. I want to bring in Republican Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska. We should note, of course, by the way, that Xi Jinping, when he's reelected, it's by the National People's Congress. It's not by the people, the way that we do it here in the United States. Senator, how does the United States transition from this increasingly combative relationship with China into one that is less hostile? And what was your reaction to the new foreign minister's comments?
Well, I know the foreign minister, and I think his comments about the United States needing to pump the brakes or there's going to be some kind of conflict. I think China, the Chinese Communist Party, Jake, is the one that needs to pump the brakes. Look at what they've done in terms of aggressive actions in the last 2 years. I mean, obviously the pandemic is a huge issue, but with regard to its neighbors, whether it literally was a shooting war on the border with India, the crushing of any kind of liberty and democracy in Taiwan, the crushing of what's going on with regard to the Uyghurs, an economic embargo and coercion against Australia, and the aggressive actions that they take almost daily in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. That's just in the last 2 years. So
Right.
This is a regime that is showing very aggressive actions to its neighbors and all around the world. And I think if anyone needs to pump the brakes on their actions, it's the Chinese Communist Party, not America.
On the subject of Taiwan, there are reports that Taiwan's president is going to meet with Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in April. China's foreign ministry have warned McCarthy not to visit Taiwan, so it's possible the meeting might take place in California. We don't know. Either way, Beijing is likely going to react. What do you think about McCarthy meeting the president of Taiwan? Is that appropriate? Do you support it? We should remind people that then Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, and that was also considered poking the bear.
Well, you remember when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, I actually led a statement of over 40, I think it was 40 U.S. senators, bipartisan group of senators, that said we should support Pelosi's visit. Actually, I'm sorry, on Pelosi's visit, it was just Republicans, ironically. I actually think if the Speaker, the number 3 elected official in our government, wants to visit Taiwan, that individual should be able to do so, and we shouldn't let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where elected American officials can travel.